In a week filled with diplomatic maneuvers and military recalibrations, Hungary, long known as NATO's most contentious member, is once again in the spotlight. With tensions running high over the Ukraine conflict, Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjarto announced that he will meet with Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York. For many, the meeting itself isn't entirely surprising. Hungary has always had a controversial stance on Russia, balancing its membership in NATO with its long-standing relationship with Moscow. What's raising eyebrows is the timing and symbolism of the meeting. With much of NATO still united in its support for Ukraine, Hungary's decision to maintain open lines of communication with the Kremlin underscores a growing rift within the alliance. Szijjarto, in an interview with Russia's RIA Novosti, didn't mince words. "We cannot afford not to be in touch with the Russians," he said, insisting that diplomacy, even with Moscow, is essential. This stance comes as NATO's commitment to Ukraine, while firm on the surface, begins to show cracks, with other key allies scaling back their military support for Kyiv.
I'm going to meet Foreign Minister Lavrov, which is a habit of ours. Whenever we are here for the General Assembly, we always meet with each other. Because, you can deny the reality, but it doesn't make sense.
While Hungary has always been somewhat of an outlier, it's not alone anymore. A few key NATO members, Germany, Poland, and even France, are beginning to reconsider their support for Ukraine. And that's a problem for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, whose country has relied heavily on this military aid to keep Russian forces at bay. Perhaps the most surprising turn of events comes from Poland, a nation that has been among Ukraine's most vocal supporters since Russia's invasion in February 2022. Poland has been a lifeline for Ukraine, sending billions in military aid and offering an indispensable supply line. But now, even Warsaw is pulling back. Polish Deputy Prime Minister and Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz confirmed that Poland's aid pipeline to Kyiv has hit its limits. "That's all we were able to donate," he said, following an appeal from Zelensky for more fighter jets and missile defense systems. For Ukraine, this is a significant blow, especially as winter looms, a season that could prove decisive in the conflict.
The Polish government, both our government and the government of our predecessors, have donated billions of dollars worth of equipment to Ukraine. That's all we were able to donate.
Poland's decision couldn't come at a worse time for Ukraine's war effort. The country's close proximity to Ukraine, combined with its steady flow of military support, had made Warsaw a cornerstone of Kyiv's defense strategy. Now, with Poland stepping back, Zelensky faces an uphill battle, both on the battlefield and within the halls of NATO. Germany, Ukraine's second-largest arms supplier after the United States, is also signaling a slowdown in military aid. Chancellor Olaf Scholz, while delivering much-needed weaponry, has drawn a firm line against sending long-range Taurus cruise missiles capable of striking deep into Russian territory. "Although many are pressuring me, I will not deliver missiles that could reach Moscow," Scholz said at a town hall meeting. His words reflect a growing sentiment within NATO. There's a rising concern about the risks of escalating the conflict. But that's not all. In a move that sent shockwaves through Kyiv, German Finance Minister Christian Lindner recently announced that Germany will halve its military aid to Ukraine by 2025, citing budget constraints. The decision, framed as an act of fiscal discipline, raises serious questions about Germany's long-term commitment to supporting Ukraine's defense against Russia. Even French President Emmanuel Macron is hinting at a future where NATO may have to reconsider its stance on Russia. Speaking in Paris, Macron urged European leaders to imagine tomorrow's peace in a new form, suggesting that the West may have to rethink its relationship with Moscow once the war is over. While his comments are more forward-looking, they add to the growing sense that NATO's united front is fraying. As these developments unfold, the cracks within NATO's once solid support for Ukraine are becoming more apparent. Hungary, long viewed as a renegade within the alliance, is now finding unlikely allies in countries like Poland and Germany, nations that were once among Ukraine's staunchest supporters. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan emphasized diplomacy, warning that every drop of blood spilled and every day spent in conflict is a great loss, underscoring the alliance's shifting priorities.
The war in Ukraine, now entering its third year, threatens regional and global stability. From the very first day, we have emphasized the need to prioritize diplomacy for lasting peace in the region. Let me be clear, every drop of blood spilled and every day spent in conflict is a great loss. With this understanding, we are patiently continuing our efforts to establish a just peace.
The strain of the conflict, now entering its third year, is taking a toll. Domestic concerns, financial limits, and the ever-present fear of escalation are pushing some NATO members to rethink their commitments. For Hungary, the decision to keep communication channels open with Russia is just another example of its unique diplomatic tightrope. For Poland and Germany, the shift is driven by more practical concerns, both financial and geopolitical. Zelensky, meanwhile, is left to navigate an increasingly complex landscape. As winter approaches and battlefield conditions worsen, he will need to find new ways to rally support from his NATO allies. But with key players like Poland, Germany, and Hungary signaling a pivot, the road ahead looks more uncertain than ever. For NATO, the question remains: can the alliance maintain its unity in the face of a prolonged conflict? Or are we witnessing the beginning of a broader shift away from supporting Ukraine's fight against Russia? Only time will tell, but for now, the cracks in NATO's armor are starting to show. This shift in NATO's stance was foreseen by Russian President Vladimir Putin, who has long warned that the Western coalition's resolve would weaken over time. The ongoing conflict has strained public opinion and national budgets across Europe, and domestic political pressures are increasingly influencing foreign policy decisions. Putin's strategy appears to be bearing fruit as key European nations begin to prioritize their internal stability over sustained military assistance to Ukraine.